Welcome. This is MoneyHeart, where we explore the emotional side of money. I'm Camille Diaz, and today we're discussing wisdom from a seasoned bookkeeper. My guest is Joanne Richards. She's a native Californian, now living in Portland, Oregon. She's been a bookkeeper since 1976 and has worked as an employee and has been self-employed for the second time since 2007. Crunching numbers is a skill inherited from her father and grandfather. Her thriving bookkeeping practice has clients on both the East and West coasts of the US, plus a client in England. She's the mother of a grown daughter and proud grandmother of 3. She's been married for over 19 years. Joanne, welcome to MoneyHeart.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I am so glad you have decided to share a bit of your story with us. This is going to be really fun. I want to get right into it because you usually work with women who are suddenly single and stuck with managing the finances. What drove you to become a bookkeeper?
And that's just one type of client, but what drove me to be a bookkeeper, I think, besides I love crunching the numbers and I was always good at math. I grew up in the 50s and 60s watching my parents pay the bills month after month, arguing, and it just never sounded like a pleasant experience. Fast forward to when my dad died and my mom had absolutely no clue how to manage the money. And I don't think I started helping her right then, and she had a friend that was helping her invest some of the money she got after my dad died. But it's like when I was around and able to start helping her a few years later, it's like, what do you mean you don't know how to pay your bills? It's like, what do you mean you don't know how to pull your stuff together for taxes? She goes, we watched you work with dad every month. And she said, I was just allowed to put the check in the envelope. She wasn't even allowed to write out the checks when they were paying bills. So she had no clue, so I don't even think she realized, I don't know what point she realized that they were not doing well financially and they were in a huge debt, so living off of credit cards was their normal. And, we lived in a nice house, and then all of a sudden my dad's job changed and whatever. And, we had to move. So it's like, it was just weird. It's like, there was a point when I was a teenager that we realized, the money situation wasn't the same. But again, I grew up thinking my parents were on the same page with money, and, they weren't. So
they weren't. Yeah. What an interesting perception that you saw. Mom and dad are both on top of it. She's involved. Everybody knows what's happening. And the truth was she was only allowed to put the checks in the envelope, lick them, and stick the stamp on it. No actual knowledge of what was happening at all. So that's huge.
No.
That's huge.
No. Yeah. And they, if they were arguing about money along the way, they kept that from us. We did hear some arguments, but it was usually not about money. But so we didn't know. And I'm very forthright with my daughters. Like, I hope you're talking to your teenagers about the reality of your family budget. And, because they just keep expecting her to spend money on this and this and this. And, it's like your children need to know the realities of, maybe not when they're 2 and 3, but, when they're certainly able to understand, they need to understand the reality of the family finances. So,
yeah, I love that. And not so much to, make them feel guilty for wanting things, but to help involve them in the decision process, which is, I think, what you're getting at, of saying, okay, well, we can do this big vacation together, or I can buy you the $250 pair of sneakers, but we can't do both. So what's most important? That kind of thing.
And they have been taught that, sometimes they need to save on their own if they want a particular thing, So they're not, that doesn't mean they're great savers yet, but it's like, well, you really should be, because again, you don't want to be like grandma and hardly able to pay for retirement when it comes time to that. So, anyway, there's lessons to teach them, which they haven't quite learned yet.
It's okay. It'll be there when they need it. Later on, they'll want something and they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to save for that. And they'll know what to do because you brought it up. So yeah, kids are funny that way. They don't necessarily seem like they're getting the message And then all of a sudden, 5, 10, however many years down the road, you're like, oh, that one went in. Fantastic.
And they do understand that, well, okay, mom, what extra chores can I do to, earn money
Yes.
for this thing that I'm trying to save for? So that's, they are learning.
Nice.
They do know that money doesn't grow on trees. It's just,
Yep. You have been married more than a few times.
Yeah.
And you've
Yes,
got
I
some
have.
financial stories to go with that. Will you share?
I do, and I'm proud to say I'm on marriage number 7, but it is the most long-lasting marriage I've had, and it's not a secret. But I would say in my earlier marriages, first of all, I was I was like 20 the first time I got married. So when you're students, you just, it's normal, you don't have any money, so you're pinching pennies everywhere you can go. But and so money was always a struggle for well, the husbands and I. Husband number 2, well, I was going to say I was pregnant with husband number 2, but I was working. We were both working, so money wasn't as big of an issue. But there were other times when I was a stay-at-home mom and I wasn't working, and so money was a lot tighter. Right. And then husband number 5 talked me into investing some money I was managing for someone else, and thinking we'd get her more of a return on that. And he lost it all. I didn't lose it. He lost it all. And then I still owed the person the money, because it wasn't money she could just say, oh, well. And so I paid her back, and that was all good. And I had to, number 1, put a lien on his house, because by then we were not together. Mm. And when he finally sold it, he had to pay me back. But it also forced me, I wasn't able to pay off my own debts and keep up with my own obligations. And I ended up filing bankruptcy. Oh, wow. Which is it's not as much of a stigma now. It's kind of not normal. I wouldn't advise people just to run, say, okay, I'm not going to pay my debts, but you're not seen as much of an outcast anymore if you have to file bankruptcy. But, I did it. It was horrible. And it was humiliating to sit there in bankruptcy court and to have him in the bankruptcy court with his new wife and their children. All on the same day, and I had nobody there with me. So it was humiliating and horrible. And I've moved past it. Now I make a great income, and, but that was horrible. So hopefully, if I can help anybody avoid that, great.
Yeah. So that brings me to the next thing that I want to talk about, which is a few things went wrong to lead to that situation.
Yeah.
And it sounds like maybe you didn't know exactly everything that was happening with the finances at that time, in between the two of you, or weren't involved in the decision making. What are some tips and advice strategies that you would like to share with other women, whether they're in that situation or not, just to make sure that something like they don't have to go through what you went through?
And even if you stay in a situation, it's not a situation where you're suddenly single, but whatever, it's like, and I would say always be involved with the family finances. Now, that particular guy, I did give him permission to invest that money, so that's on me. But it was not a wise investment, and against my better judgment. And the person we were investing it for said, okay, and you can invest the money, but don't ever put it in this. And that's exactly what the husband put it in, even though it wasn't what she would have wanted. So anyway, so don't let the man talk, don't let your partner, whoever, whether man or woman, don't let your partner talk you into stuff that you think is against what you intuitively feel is not the good thing. Always be aware of what's going on. And, even if you don't have a lot of money sense, or you don't want to be the one paying the bill, you don't want to be the one managing, but still be on top of it. I know I didn't, my current in-laws, they're both gone, and my father-in-law died about 6 months before I met my husband. But that so old school is like, the man earns the money, and she was a stay-at-home mom, but the man earns the money and he makes sure the wife is provided for. I mean, he was giving her an allowance weekly or monthly. Here's what you run the household on. It's like, and thankfully, probably good for her, because she did not have any money sense. And she thought when he died, oh, I'm a big girl now, I can do it all. Well, thankfully, I came along because she couldn't. She didn't really know how to, she just knew how to spend.
Yep.
So thankfully, he had money in many diverse places. But, and even my husband, the first person he was married to, she was not good at money, and he had her on an allowance, even though she was earning, she was probably earning pocket money from her job. But, and I keep telling him, it's like, well, I want to be, I'm a bookkeeper and I want equal say, and I want, it's like, and that's almost a foreign concept for him, to let the woman be involved with the money. It's like, dude, for many of my marriages, I've been the one writing the checks and being the one in charge, and telling the man, okay, here's what we've got coming in, and here's what we've got going out. And it's like, so don't tell me that I'm not going to be involved now. But
right. Yeah.
So I would say be involved, even if you're not the one writing the bills. And especially if you are suddenly single, it's like, find somebody that can help you. It's like, here's how you may know how to go online to check your balances.
Yeah.
But you need to be aware. You need to know how to set up a little budget to know what's coming in and what you expect to be going out, and how you plan for, property taxes only get paid twice a year. Well, how do I save for that? It's like, how do I save for that? And insurance may not get paid. Sometimes my house insurance gets paid monthly, right now it's on an annual thing. So, but you need to know how to set money aside for those kind of things. And, thankfully I have a few clients who have several little savings accounts, saying, okay, this is going to be for emergencies. This is going to be for the fun stuff we're saving for. This is going to be for the future house we want to buy. So if you can get disciplined to set up yourself savings accounts for that. I mean, I only have a few: taxes, travel, emergency, that kind of stuff, but it helps.
It does. I love that idea. And it makes it so easy, because now the bank will let you automate things. So if you're going to put $50 or $100 or whatever, into this fund every month, you just set it up to automatically do that a few days after you normally get paid. And then off it goes. You didn't think about it. You didn't have an opportunity to spend it. And it's set aside, and you know what that's for. So you're not just looking at your entire bank balance when you have it all in one place and going, ooh, look, there's a lot. And then you spend it, and then you realize, oops, that's because property taxes are due next week. And that's why I have an extra $3,000 or whatever it is, because I was saving for property taxes and I forgot. So yeah, great strategy.
And, another thing, especially for, I shouldn't just say it's all for women, but it's usually the woman that needs to, have some little nest egg for yourself, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So this could be for, both partners should probably have a little nest egg. I mean, I'm all for combining and not having a million separate accounts, because that's a bookkeeping nightmare. And I've had to have clients that way. It's like each partner has their own business, and then they have their own personal account. And it's like, oh my gosh. It drives me crazy. But, it's like, you should have your own little nest egg. Number one, I've been in a domestic abuse situation, and, I had to, when I finally had enough, it's like I had to call my mom. It's like, can you front me the money for an airplane ticket? Because we got to go.
Yeah.
But you need to have some emergency money that you can set aside somehow. Right. And also the other thing is, I learned late in life that you ought to have a retirement plan, whether it's another savings account, or I'm self-employed, so I can have a SEP IRA account, which I do, but I didn't start that till I was 60, because I always thought, the husband, the man and I, or the man would take care of me, or, the man would have enough money. We would have a retirement figured all out, and we didn't. And at 60, I better do something for myself. And how can and I started with small amounts, and I just said, here you go, take this much out of my bank account twice a month. And it's like, I don't miss it. And that's like, oh, okay, now I can afford, now take this much out twice a month.
Yeah.
And now it's like every now and then, okay, well, here's just another small chunk, add that to my account.
Yeah.
And even though my retirement account is like, if I was very frugal, I might be able to live for a year on what I've got in there, which plus Social Security, but it's like, oh, it's just like, don't wait till you're 60 to start saving anything. If I could teach, especially women, obviously that's who I really want to empower, but sometimes men need this too. But it's like, start saving $50 a month. Don't go out to dinner that one time.
Right.
Or, don't go to Starbucks one time a week, and you'll be surprised how much you could save. And just start, because if you start way before 60, even if you start at 40, those smaller amounts just chunk up, and you'll have several $100,000 in the bank.
It's
by
really
the time
amazing.
You really need it.
It's amazing how much that compound interest makes a difference if you give it the time.
And my financial planner has a chart on, if you start saving now, this is how much you'll have by this age. And if you don't start till here, but it does compound. It's like, oh man, if somebody had told me that.
Yeah, it's drastic. It's drastic what the difference makes of if you start saving early versus later. And even if you're only, like you said, saving a little bit, you save $20, you save $50, when you can, it creates the habit. And then you see that little pile start to grow after a few years. You've been saving your $50 a month for a few years, and you're like, look at that. I've got a few $100. Well, maybe I just got that little bonus, so I'll put half of it over there. Or, oh, somebody gave me this gift card, and I don't really need all the money, so I'll put some extra money over there. You just start finding more ways to add to it. And it makes a massive difference. It's really cool.
and it's interesting because I was taking a class from a money wisdom coach once, and dealing with your emotions around money and why you have the patterns you have. And a lot of my patterns come from my parents. It's like, I too have credit card debt, and I am getting it paid down. And I hardly put anything on a credit card anymore unless I need to travel, which isn't that often. So what's interesting, she said, especially at my age, because it would be better for you, and this differs for everybody. It's like, but for me, she goes, it would be better for you to put more money into your retirement, because that's what you're really stressed about. Because you can keep plugging away at your credit cards, but and
the thing is, you say you started saving at 60, and there are probably people listening who are thinking, oh man, I'm close to that age or past that. I don't know if it's even worth it for me to save. I can pretty much guarantee that you're not going to be mad about having extra money saved at the point that you need it. When you go to use that, because sometimes, we think, well, we'll just work forever. Okay, that sounds awesome until you have a health event that doesn't allow you to do so. You don't always get to make the choice, even if you love what you're doing. So having that money set aside you're always going to be happy about it. You're never going to be like, oh man, I hate that I have that extra $100,000 over there. Like, nobody's going to be mad about it.
No. And it's like, I know my daughter will not be able to financially support me.
Yeah.
Unless she hits the lottery or something. So it's like, it's not like I can count. I don't want to count on her.
Right.
And yes, I'm going to be 68 in a few months. And yes, I could claim Social Security at that point, even though it bumps up drastically by several $100s if I wait till I'm 70.
Right.
But I still would like to retire before I'm 70, and clearly before I'm 80, and definitely before I'm 90. It's like, it gets very scary because I really want to retire and do other fun things.
Yeah.
So it just, start saving now, people.
So since you're a bookkeeper, you come across a lot of business owners, and you have some good tips and like best practices for them.
I try.
Yeah. Would you like to share a few of those with us? Just if you're an entrepreneur out there, like how to get it right. And if you're doing it backwards, let's go ahead and fix that.
Yeah, it can be fixed. Number one, especially if you're starting out as if you're just starting your business, hire a bookkeeper. You may think it's going to cost too much, but I love this story I have, and I've had this client for maybe a couple of years now, but at least more than a year. She started out and, had like during COVID, she started her business, and, yes, things were slow and now they're much improved. But she hired me. She goes, I just know that I could try to do it myself, but I go, this is what you were good at. And this is what I'm good at. And at the beginning, it would take me 15 minutes a month to do her books because there weren't a lot of transactions.
Yeah.
Now it maybe takes me a half an hour because it's not a complicated business to do the bookkeeping for. But it's like, and way back then, it certainly didn't cost her $100 a month. But I tell people you need to budget at least $100 a month, depending on, but it's like, it's the best investment you'll ever make to not try and have to do your own bookkeeping.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And even when my daughter started her business 10 plus years ago, she goes, okay, I'm having you do it all, Mom. And, she refers me to a lot of people.
I bet.
And it's like, you're good at what you do. And, she just knew, it's like, I need you to do this. She goes, I could probably do it. And yes, as a business owner, you could learn how to do the bookkeeping for yourself, but why would you want to?
Right. Is that unless bookkeeping is your business, you don't need to learn to do bookkeeping.
No. And the thing is, what I tell people is like, just because you know how to enter it in QuickBooks or download it from the bank, that does not make you a bookkeeper. That makes you a data entry person. I'm sorry. I went to school for several years to learn all about the accounting principles and the debits and the credits and, how you make certain entries and the whys and the whats. And, there's a reason why I've been at this so long, because I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I always advise people to hire a bookkeeper. The other thing is keep your business finances separate from your personal, always.
Huge. And always. Yes.
Yes. Get it out of your personal account. Maybe you have to start out that way, but as soon as you can, get a separate business account, get a separate business credit card if you use credit cards, and your bookkeeper will be so much happier, because what happens is, well, and especially if you're a corporation, you have to have it that way. You just have to.
Right.
The government really frowns on commingling funds. That doesn't mean you can't pay yourself. That doesn't mean you can't take a draw, but you can't, like, I don't want to see
in the same account. You're so right.
That your Prime Video charge is coming out of your corporate account. I'm sorry, unless you're showing videos to clients, I'm sure you're just ordering movies.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely keeping them separate is massive. And like you said, especially for corporations, it gets you in legal trouble. If somebody tries to come after you legally and you've done what they call piercing the corporate veil.
I was going to say, yes, you will pierce that veil sooner than you think. So I slap a lot of hands virtually. It's like, no. I have done so much training. I've done a lot of training on it. It's like, you just can't commingle. And even I'm a sole proprietor, but I still have a separate business account.
Yep.
And you just have to. And it's so much easier, because then your bookkeeper isn't saying, okay, here's this long list of things that I don't know if it's personal or business. So now you need to take the time to answer all those questions.
Yeah.
And I need to know, okay, is that meal business or personal? Did you actually meet with clients? Was it a working meal? Were you meeting with clients? Because the IRS is going to want to know if on the off chance they decide to audit you.
Right. And so 3 months later, it's really hard to remember.
You're not going to remember who you went to dinner with. So
it's hard.
And that leads you right into the thing of keep your receipts. And you don't have to keep them on paper, but you should at least scan them, take a picture of them. You can, we can upload the receipts to QuickBooks now. But even if you scan them and throw away the paper, the IRS is fine with that, as long as you have, and there's all kinds of little scanners, even if you're just doing it for receipts, but so that you can save a digital copy.
Yeah.
Or save them in a Google folder, or save them. I do have a couple clients who send me all their receipts and then I send them back, because I spent too many years. I was like, well, I don't want all your paper at my house. And now that I don't live near most of my clients, it's like, I really don't want all your paper.
Oh, your paper
in your apartment. It's like,
I love
here
that
you go.
Google one, because it's so easy to do a scan with your phone right into Google Drive, and then you can share it with your bookkeeper. It's like,
Right.
it could not be any easier. If you don't want to upload them to QuickBooks, just scan them into your Google Drive and share it with your bookkeeper, and ta-da, everything is there. And I
Yes.
even make a note. So like because I'm a systems and processes strategies person. So as soon as I'm at a restaurant with a client and I get my receipt, I write the client's name on the top.
Good.
So
Me
that
too.
and then when that picture goes in, it already has the name on there, which can
Exactly.
coordinate back to my calendar if I ever get audited. So no
That's
worries.
great.
Super
That's
simple.
great. And I have a couple of, and this is something I learned from my clients. It's like, I didn't even know you could upload the receipts, because I don't think QuickBooks Online used to do that.
It didn't used to,
And
but it does now. Yeah, it's
yes.
new.
So
Mhm.
I learned that from my clients, and it's like, oh, cool. Let me see. Oh, yes, those are job materials. Great. And one of my clients is a building contractor. So it's like, okay, it would be great if you would write the name of your client or job on that receipt, or else you're going to have to go back in and identify which job this goes to if you care.
Yeah.
If we're tracking job costs through, QuickBooks,
Right.
we got to identify that.
Right.
So that is a cool thing, but you do need to, because the information has to be saved for like at least 7 years.
Right.
So
yeah. Yeah.
but
And then you don't have
to save all the
paper and
paper.
files everywhere. Ugh,
I know.
sometimes I feel like if I put any more boxes of files in my attic, then everything's going to fall out onto my dining room table one day. So I stopped doing that. I was like, okay, we need a new system. I can't keep keeping all this paper. So I quit doing that. I started scanning them and shredding them so that I wouldn't have all that paper hanging around.
And even after I do the tax return for myself, I will just save the statements and the most important things I need. I don't save all the grocery receipts, and I don't save all the receipts, but especially if it's like a deduction or something, I will save the really important stuff for the 7 years in a box and shove it on the closet, shelf or something. But I don't save every scrap of paper once I've done my tax return.
Neither do I. It's just way too much. I'm like, less paper I can have saved at my house, the better.
Really?
So I want to jump to your one on contractors.
Oh, good. That was my next one.
Other people. Is that your next one? Okay,
yeah,
fantastic.
The W9. Yeah. So number one, you need to understand the difference between an employee and a service contractor.
Right.
So, and if there's somebody that's under your supervision and they don't have other clients that they do that thing for, they're your employee, and you can't just skirt around that. And I've got a client right now who's still paying somebody as an independent person. He goes, well, I started him out that way because I wanted to see if he'd work out before I put him on payroll. I go, okay, well, it's been 6 months. You need to put him on payroll. How long do you need to see if he's going to work out?
Right. Yeah. 6 months is kind of the limit on the see if it works out length.
Yeah. And the point is, if you get audited or caught, and they'll make you pay all his back withholding and whatever. But so when you have an independent contractor or a service provider, this doesn't count if you're buying job materials from whoever. If they're providing you any kind of service, and if they're not a corporation, except for lawyers get 1099 for everything. But if they're not a corporation, so when you hire somebody, you just need to collect their W9. That's what it's called in the United States. I know it's something else if I was hiring somebody in Canada or somewhere else, but collect their W9 from the very beginning. Because number one, at the end of the year, I'm going to need that to do this government, filing called a 1099. And trust me, I'm too crazy in January to want to scramble around. And I still have clients that are still collecting them. It's like, I need that.
Right. Yeah. So
I
know you recommend this too, of when, because sometimes I need to do this for people that, have done something for me and I'm paying them for the service or whatever it is that I'm paying them for. I won't pay them until I get their 1099 back.
Their W9.
Their W9. Sorry. Until I get their W9.
Okay.
If they don't give me the W9, the check is not going out. And
Good,
guess how
good.
many people send their W-9?
I know, it's amazing, huh?
100%. They all want to get paid, so they all send the W-9, and then I send the check. And then when
interesting.
January rolls around,
Yes, then you have it.
I'm good to go.
That's good. And I have one client who, thankfully, they do, they don't give them to me piecemeal, but they do at least save them all in one Google folder. And then if it's a new person for that year, I will have to say, well, I need this one.
Right.
It's interesting because I have several clients who have had like maybe consulting gigs with like especially bigger corporations, and it's just part of the practice. Here's all our onboarding forms, and we need your W-9 before we ever pay you.
Right.
And so it just was part of the process. So I always try to train my clients. It's like, as you start working with these people, just get their W-9. It's like, what if they don't want to give it to me? I go, well, unless they don't have a social security number, they shouldn't have a problem with it.
Right.
Because, and you can just tell them your mean bookkeeper made you do it. And also it's an IRS rule. The IRS will fine you if you don't have it. Now, I've never known them to come in and check, but I shouldn't say that publicly, but it's like, it's still an IRS rule that you have it on file, and you can be fined if you don't have it. And you can be fined then if you should have done a 1099 and you didn't. So as a bookkeeper, I try to be very diligent. And this year I said, I'm going to do a 1099 for that person, even if I don't have their tax ID number, because you paid them a whopping amount and the government needs to know.
Yeah. So, just really quick, I want to touch on a couple of these because we're almost out of time. So,
oh gosh, okay.
I know we get into it and then it's like flies by because I know save money for taxes, since we're already talking about taxes, and we talked about saving for retirement. But even in business, saving for retirement, saving for reserves, saving for emergencies, like you got to do that stuff on your business side, not just your personal side.
Yes.
And one of the things that was on your list was understanding that a profit on paper is not the same thing as your bank balance. Can you just touch on that real quick? Because I think it's huge, and people don't usually bring this up.
Sure. So, money comes in and money's going out. And when I'm doing a report, because there's two reports that the CPA wants to see, it's like the profit and loss, so that's your income and expenses, and your balance sheet, which is what you have and what you owe, and then like what the owners put into the business. But just because you've made $10,000 and only 8 went out on paper, the income statement does not reflect maybe what you paid yourself or what is actually owed on the credit card, because those get counted as expenses.
Right.
But over here you've got a whopping credit card debt. So the income and expenses, just the money that you've made in revenue and the expenses that get allocated for that month, that has no effect. That's not the same as your cash flow. So if you're trying to decide what you can pay, it's like, okay, here's the bank balance as of the moment. And maybe sometimes, okay, this is much, I know this is how much I've got coming in the next couple of days. Here's the bills that are due. So here's how much money we could play with if we need to. And that's like your budgeting and your projection. But definitely know that just because you made money that month does not mean you have cash in the bank, because you might have paid yourself.
Right.
And that doesn't, what you pay yourself, unless you're on payroll, does not get counted in the income and expenses.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's important to think. And what a great case for why you might want to have a bookkeeper is that they will be able to tell you if you can do that big expense or not. If all these reports don't make sense to you and you're like, yeah, okay, so great, I have all these papers in front of me and none of them are telling me if I can go buy that new computer.
Right.
But you could ask your bookkeeper, hey, do I have anything big coming up, or do I actually have extra money that I can afford to buy a new laptop, type of thing.
Right. And like some of my clients, I know all the bills they have coming in. Some of my clients, because they need to pay their bills a lot quicker than I actually work on their books, and I'm not an on-site bookkeeper.
Mm-hmm.
I just let them, I don't even deal with their payables anymore. I just let them, okay, because by the time I see the invoices, they should have already paid the bill, or they already did. So it's like, well, me giving you a payables report isn't going to help you at this point. But So, that's another aside, but it's like, so I don't always know what they're doing on a day-to-day basis and what bills they're having to pay because I don't always see it. But when I have a few clients that I do deal with weekly. So, I have a closer eye on what they're doing, but also, I'm not always, long-term strategy and stuff. That's where you come in, and that's where the financial planner comes in. That's where the CPA comes in. I don't want to be your big strategy person.
Sure,
I
sure.
can tell you if there's enough money, but I don't want to be your big strategy person.
You don't want to tell them if it's okay to go get it or not. You can just tell them, yeah, you've got enough money for that, and still pay
Right.
the
I
bill.
don't want to be involved with your long-term planning.
Right. Yeah, that's not what
not
you
my
that's not your
strong
thing.
suit. That's not where my desire is. And there are
Exactly.
people for that. You hire the people that are good at what you need them to be doing. So,
Which is a fantastic point. You hire the right person for the right
that's
job.
exactly right.
I love that.
I even have a financial planner. So.
Yeah. What are you most excited about right now?
I am excited that last year I published a book about my life stories called
cool.
Midlife Magic. So, you get all the lowdown on my crappy marriages and my current good marriage and all the fun non-bookkeeping stuff I'm into. So that's really cool. I'm very excited about that. And I do love helping other people. I'm excited where I live. I can do a lot of walking and I have a magical practice. So I'm excited, and I'm excited to be near my family. I moved to Portland during COVID so I could be near my kids. Mm-hmm. So, that's good. So
yeah, very good. Thank you so much for spending time and sharing your wisdom with us today.
Of course.
Yeah, really appreciate it. If you want to get a copy of Joanne's book, you can go to her website, dragonhillbooks.net. And if you want to connect with her, her email is joanne@midlifemagic.biz, and that's spelled JOANN. She's also on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram. We will have all those links in the show notes for you. Thank you as well to our listeners and viewers. I'm your host, Camille Diaz. I'm a business optimization coach, financial educator, author, and speaker. You can contact me and find out what I'm up to through my website, CamilleDiaz.com, and follow me on social media at Cam Unfiltered. Be sure to follow MoneyHeart at MoneyHeart Show, and our website is MoneyHeartShow.com. Joanne, would you like to share today's money mantra?
I would love to. I am worthy and capable of financial abundance.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.